Morning guys, welcome back to the garage. Today we're working on a Bradford White water heater. Obviously not having hot water is a little bit of an emergency, a little bit. So I took a look at it. There were no leaks in the water heater, and I checked the impedance on my heating elements, the resistance, and the lower heating element does not have any. That's bad. What we did was cut the power and took a little meter and tested it. So let's take a look at what we're looking at when it comes to troubleshooting your water heater. So let's take a look at testing our heating element. This can be done while the heating element's still installed in our heater. So this meter here, I've got a resistance reading that I can do. Switch that over. If I touch these guys together, you can hear a beep. If I take this and I put them on the two connectors for the water heater, we hear that beep. The lower heating element is still installed. This is what it looks like in there. You can see I've already disconnected the wires and just pushed them to the sides. If I touch these together, there's no beep. No beep. So with that, we know that the heating element itself is actually broken in line. It's not able to create a closed connection. It's not able to heat up. You don't want to pull that out without fully draining the water heater. Otherwise, you're just going to get gallons and gallons and gallons of water dumping out, soaking your insulation. So I've already tested, troubleshooted, and went out to Home Depot and grabbed a couple of things. This is our upper heating element. This one is complete, but you can see the calcification all over the element itself. I started scraping it off, and some of the anti-corrosion coating started coming off, and I figured while I'm in here, I might as well replace both of them. These Everbuilts I got at Home Depot for $20 each. You can see there's a long list of compatible brands, including Bradford White, which is what we've got. So I'm going to replace both of those. They're 4,500 watt, 240 volts, and the threading and fitting is universal. I did get an element wrench. This just slides over the top of that when it's on the water heater, and you stick a screwdriver through that hole and give it a nice wrench down. Now I've got so much calcification up in my water heater here that this lower drain line, I had to keep sticking a screwdriver in there to kind of unclog it. That calcification is pretty much what made the heating element fail in the first place. You can see this thing got sopping wet, the insulation. Because that wasn't draining quickly enough, I ended up taking a plastic cup. I went to the top here and held a bucket. Pretty much I made a water chute to help prevent the insulation from getting too wet. Insulation is wet. It is what it is. It would have taken hours and hours and hours for this to all drain just because of that calcification buildup in there. When I put everything back together, I pretty much have to wait for the insulation to completely dry before I cover anything up. What I'm going to do to help prevent corrosion on the connections is put a little bit of dielectric grease on there that I got from the auto parts store to help prevent corrosion from building up. I'm going to leave these doors open, and it's not recommended, but I should be able to still run the hot water heater even with this insulation still drying out. So I've got a shop vac here to assist me, wet dry vac. I pulled the filter off it, and I got an adapter for the shop vac, and this has a 7/8 outside diameter, 5/8 inside diameter. You can see it's kind of stuck in there. This is what I'm going to use to suck out some more of the water out of the hot water heater. Got a long 10-foot hose. Oh, goodness. Stay. And I'm going to stick the hose in through that hole, kind of fish it down to help assist in draining the water from the bottom so I can remove the bottom heating element. And then I'm gonna just kind of jimmy the hose all around to get up what calcification I can and the other pieces of the heating element that might still be in there. Woo! Well, there's your problem right there. So this was our upper heating element. This is pretty much how it's supposed to look, obviously minus the corrosion. And this was our lower one. It doesn't look like it actually broke, so luckily there's not going to be any pieces inside of the water heater, but here it split and went wide, so this was actually a little difficult to pull out. I didn't want to break it, so I kind of gently twisted and pulled as it was coming. You can see heavy buildup, heavy corrosion, and obviously this split here. So, ugh, yeah, that's nasty. You can see, maybe you can't see inside of that. There's supposed to be basically a wire that goes all the way through on the inside of this. And when this split open, that wire hit the water and just kind of blew. This is calcium and water, just like a sludge. And I'm pretty sure that that's going to be found inside of the water heater as well. So I'm going to want to get out as much of that as I can. So in the bottom here, I wasn't sure if enough water had come out before, so I put my chute back in place before unscrewing it, and you can see the opening in which the heating element goes. So I've got this long hose. I'm gonna stick this guy in there and just move it all around, sucking up as much sludge as I can. I'll probably spray some more water in there with just like a garden hose, just to kind of rinse the tank and then do some more vacuuming. So it's a little worse than I thought in there. I started sucking it out. You can already see all that goop and gunk on there. I'm gonna turn this thing on. You're not gonna be able to hear me talk at all, but you'll be able to see some of this goo coming up through this line. Alright, so I'm going to kick on the shop vac and show you exactly what I'm doing to suck this calcification out. You can see this line is just jam-packed with sludge. I'm going to be down here for a few more minutes. So all I'm doing is kind of moving this in and out and moving the bend of the line so that I can get into all the corners and crevices and suck out all this calcified snot. Look at that. That's what's getting pulled out of the bottom of this. All this buildup on top of the heating element prevents the water from getting to it. The heating element ends up overheating and pretty much bursting, which is like what we saw there. I just disconnected the line, so it's kind of working off of a ventrili effect as it's sucking more water out, and there's still a whole bunch of sludge coming along with it. We look inside of here. Let's see if I can grab it. Oh my goodness! Look at this. What the? Oh, insulation. All in the bottom of this. This was all in the water heater. This just builds up over the years when you don't have a water softener. So this is a pretty extreme case here. And look, just stirring it around, it's a slurry. Wow. That's wild. That's insane. She sells seashells by the seashore, or a buttload of calcium inside of my water heater. So this is probably 5 vacuums worth of calcium. I've just been pouring the water off the top so I don't have to just kind of dump the chunks of calcium out in the yard. Originally I was sticking a garden hose up in the top heating element port and then just vacuuming out of the bottom. And then I realized, oh yeah, I've got a cold water side up here. So I was just turning the cold water on for about 5 seconds while the vacuum tip was running in the bottom, shutting it off, letting it sit for a few seconds so any of the calcium and gunk that are on the sides kind of settles down to the bottom. Then I'd go back and forth with the hose as I was doing earlier, vacuum up all the gunk until the shop vac couldn't take anymore, and dump off the water and repeat the process. I did that about 6 times total, and the first time you saw you could not see in the water. It was like snot. And now the top of the water is actually pretty clear. Any of the calcium deposits that's still in the tank are all going to settle to the bottom over time anyway. The drain line is actually going in there on an upward angle so that when you open that drain, the calcium that inevitably will build up in your hot water heater doesn't completely close that port. But that calcium was probably the base of my tank, probably about 6 inches to a foot up, so it was still clogging that drain line. This is the dielectric grease I was talking about. I got this at AutoZone. You can see it's made for spark plugs, but first bullet point on there is locks out moisture. So I'm gonna put this on the wires before I screw them onto the contacts on the bottom of this heating element here to help prevent corrosion, because that insulation's so wet. So you can see a little bit of dielectric grease that I've applied on both of these terminals. I went ahead and loosened them up, put the grease on the sides that the wire is going to contact, and I'm going to go ahead and screw this guy in his bottom slot. I did wipe out as much of the calcification from the threading as I could. Just gingerly slides up in there. Start the threads by hand. And we've got this heating element, water heater screw-in element wrench from Home Depot. This guy was about 10 bucks. And I'm just going to put that over the heating element itself, tighten it down some more, and I'm going to stick a screwdriver in this hole and just give it a extra little oomph there, just enough so it doesn't leak. And I'm going to take these wires. It doesn't matter really which wire connects to which terminal, it just creates a loop here. Tighten it down, give it a little tug, make sure it's not going anywhere, and tuck that wire back and out of the way too. Alright, so I've got both the lower and the upper heating element installed. I left this drain open for now. As this tank fills up and extra gunk kind of builds, I just kind of want to rinse that out of the bottom. So I'm going to go ahead and open up this top valve for the cold side in. Hear that flowing. I've got this breather vent open up as well. As the water fills from the bottom to the top of the tank, we want to get as much air out of it as possible. So that's what this is. That's going to get the air out of the top of the tank. Water will start coming out of the bottom when that's full. So I'm just going to let this run for a few minutes until the water starts coming out, and I'm going to close that top port and I'm going to close that bottom port. I do have the hot side open on the faucet furthest away from the tank, and I'll go through the house and kind of open the faucets up to get all the air out of the hot water lines. I have not turned the electricity on yet. I want the tank to be full before I turn the electricity back on. Otherwise, these will overheat, and we really don't want that to happen. So as this is filling up, I can take a peek back at these, make sure that there's no water dripping from them, make sure that those are connected well. This one might not be up there yet. I can hear the air coming out of this still. So I poured off most of the water out into the front yard just to kind of water the grass because it's winter time here in Florida. And yeah, this is the pile of calcium. I poured this out back in an area that I don't usually see. I might even be able to put this into my garden. Drop a comment below if it's a good idea to put calcium buildup in your garden to help add to it. But yeah, this looks like damn seashells. I mean, there is so much that I pulled out of the hot water heater. This is all calcium buildup that I sucked out of there. That's a lot. That is a lot. I don't know when this thing was installed, but wow. All right, well, I kicked the power on after I filled up the tank. Nothing blew, so that's a good sign. Yeah, and there we have it. I'm gonna leave this bad boy open for the next couple of days so it dries out, and see if I really need to adjust the water temperature. Expect hot water in the next 30 minutes. I'll be able to take a shower because I'm gross. I'm gonna clean up now. Well, thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please consider liking and subscribe. It'll really help me out. And if there's anything you think I could have done better, leave a comment. And yeah, have a good one. Xavier.
Where are you going? Come back here.
Really?